Thanks very much, Bengals fans, for joining our live stream in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. And as always, we're coming to you from our awesome studios. And I'm looking forward to finding out what you're thinking. The Cincinnati Bengals have finished organized team activities. Of course, you know, they had the draft. They had their veteran free agents that were signed to the football team. They all came together in organized team activities, and then they all had that was voluntary. They had a mandatory minicamp. They completed that, and then they were basically dismissed. And, you know, looking at a month and a half, over a month and a half of time on their own as such. But knowing the guys on this football team, they're not going to get that far away from football. They're going to have their iPads with them wherever they go to, and will be able to access videotape of games, of practices, look at installation of things again, make sure they're still up to speed. Particularly valuable time for the rookies and the veteran free agents who are adapting to what the Cincinnati Bengals do. The Bengals, as an organization, they're not going to go back to ground zero. One of the reasons that this team has had the success that they've had is the coaching staff's been intact pretty much the whole time. Offensive, defensive coordinator, as well as special teams coordinator and assistant head coach Darren Simmons have all been there together. A lot of players have been there the whole duration. So if you're a newbie, if you're somebody new to the organization, to the franchise, it's up to you to get up to speed. So I would imagine that this, quote, dead time off is not going to be dead time totally from a mental and physical standpoint for all the players. Everybody is going to make sure that they're up to speed. It's really valuable for the coaches because this is the only time that they get off until hopefully March, you know, when the Super Bowl's over in February. You know, they during the bye week, they're still breaking themselves down like they would an opponent and see if there's tendencies they need to break and all those sorts of things. So they work pretty extensively during the bye week when the players do get a few days off. The coaches, they're on a grind and they're working a lot of hours and they're having a lot of late nights. So it's good for them to charge the batteries both mentally and physically. And this is the time that they do it. I know Lou Anarumo told us he's in Italy. He's going to be spending some time in Italy with his family. Frank Pollock is out in Arizona with his family. And so the coaches are here, there, and everywhere and spending some quality time with wife and kids before they get in the grind because honestly, I'm sure their wife and children may not see them a whole lot during the course of the regular season, the hours that those guys put in. It's crazy. We'll get right to your questions, comments, all that sort of thing right now. And let's get up there. Big John
in England.
Dave. John Storr in England. We appreciate you. Worried about the key player deals to be concluded, the tight end and running back positions, weeks before the season starts. But are you losing any sleep about these or any other areas? Key player deals to be concluded. Well, tight end, I mean, they're pretty well set. They've got their tight end. Irv Smith Jr. is the tight end that will be getting a lot of the work. Hayden Hurst did move on, but they did sign Irv Smith Jr. Drew Sample is going to be cleared medically for day one at training camp. He'll be back in the mix at the tight end position. They've got quite a few bodies competing at the tight end position. The running back position, everybody's under contract there. You know, Joe Mixon is still working through some off-field issues that need to be concluded and cleared up and all those sorts of things. But I'm not concerned with those two positions necessarily. I think when you look at the football team as a whole, though, defensively, the position that's going to be under the microscope is the safety position because they lost the killer bees. They lost Bates and Bell, and they've got, you know, different players. Nick Scott, a veteran player. They've got, you know, young guys competing at that position group as well. Dax Hill will be in that mix at the safety position. So they've got a combination of players that are going to step up and try to fill that big void by the killer bees moving on. Because the safety position, that's a big area of communication. And that's the biggest thing. The biggest thing I think that people are fearful of, the lines of communication from the back end to the linebackers to the defensive line starts with the safeties. And with Lou Anarumo, he basically sees things and communicates from back to front like most defensive coordinators do. So you have to make sure that you got all your ducks in a row, you're dotting your I's, crossing your T's from that standpoint. And I think he's got full confidence that the guys who will be competing at that safety position will be getting that done. Because you can have all the physical ability in the world. If you're not lined up properly, you're beaten from pre-snap. Never mind post-snap. You're beaten before they snap the football if you don't get yourself aligned properly against a formation or a motion out of that formation to another formation and everything that goes along with it. The other area that is going to be under the microscope offensively is going to be that right tackle position. How is that going to sort out? There's going to be a battle royale going on over there. Jonah Williams will be cleared medically. He wasn't cleared at the minicamp, the mandatory minicamp. He was there, but he was still doing rehab work on the side. But he will be cleared for training camp. He'll be there from snap one of training camp, barring any setback, which, knock on wood, is not foreseen for sure. So will it be Jonah Williams? Will it be somebody else at that right tackle position? How will that position unfold? So I think those are the two areas that people are going to be really looking at: right tackle offensively, the safety position, both free and strong safety on the defensive side of the football.
And Dave, just a little bit of a plug, because we had Dan Horde on.
Mm-hmm.
We got two different segments coming out, but the first one coming out would be you and Dan talking about this upcoming Bengals season. And you guys kind of touched on the right tackle position, also the safety, and a little tidbit about Lou Anarumo that I think people will definitely want to make sure they catch that video later this week.
Let's do it. And we also caught up with Dan. It's going to be later about UC. Of course, Dan is the Lou Gehrig. I mean, he's doing everything, and he's doing it every single day in terms of covering the Bengals football as well as UC football and basketball.
All right, a non-football, non-Bengals. Cliff had a question, Dave.
All right, Cliff. Have the Reds got Cincinnati interested in baseball again? I can't believe how well they're playing now. I can tell you, Cliff, Cincinnati is a baseball town. Always has been, always will be. It's where the first professional franchise was formed. It is a baseball town, and it doesn't take much to generate interest in the Cincinnati Reds. And the amazing thing to me, the 12-game winning streak that they went on, the Big Red Machine never won more than 10 in a row. The thing was, they did it twice in that season, 2 10-game winning streaks. So when you're looking at a 20-game stretch and you have 2 separate occasions where you win 10 in a row 2 times and don't lose a game, that's going to win you 100 games like they did. But to win 12 in a row like this baseball team has, Ellie De La Cruz is just got the city on fire. Had the first hit for the cycle for the first time since 1989 when Eric Davis pulled it off. And when we were my early years with the Cincinnati Bengals, my first 2 seasons, 74 and 75, we had good teams. We were a playoff team in football, but the Big Red Machine was in full force, led by Sparky Anderson and Pete Rose, Johnny Bench, Joe Morgan. It goes on and on. And it was all baseball all the time here in Cincinnati. So not surprising whatsoever that this group of young players and the chemistry and the way they play together, that locker room is a good place to be right now for the Cincinnati Reds organization. Joey Votto's back, and he's gotten off to a great start. 3 home runs in his first 4 games back after the labrum surgery and the bicep attachment surgery. So the Reds, don't rule them out. They're in first place. As of when we're doing this podcast, they're a half a game lead in first place in their division. So see if they can ride it out.
Our good friend Yash over in England wants to know if he visits Cincy in 2023, early 2024. Can I visit First Star Logistics?
Oh, yeah, Yash. We'll get that done. We'll take you on the full tour. Yeah. You're a loyal follower of what we're doing here in the trenches. So, Yash, it would be our honor and our privilege to show you during your tour of Cincinnati, if you want to include First Star Logistics in our studios in First Star Logistics, You're more than welcome, my man.
And that by then we can't really say too much, but
Which
there's going to be some
we'll
changes in our studio at First Star Logistics, but we won't want to say too much right now.
We may have to show you Ash more than one location.
Julie had a question about cameras at baseline practices. Do you know much about that, Dave?
Are cameras allowed at baseline practices? Baseline practices.
I guess you meant training. I'd say
training camp. You mean for fans? I guess she's probably asking about fans having cameras. You know, I'm not sure that. I think there are times during practice where you can use cameras, but when they go to team installation of things, they don't want cameras. And in fact, when they're doing some installation of full team concepts, offensively and defensively, cameras aren't even allowed from the affiliate stations, the networks, NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox. None of those on a local basis here in Cincinnati or Columbus or anywhere else are allowed to videotape that part of practice. So, but only during training camp, the fans. There are portions of training camp where cameras are allowed. Yes, no question about it.
Okay, we're gonna go back to Yash's actual question: Battle or Dax starting?
That's gonna be a battle. Battle is he has Jordan Battle was impressive to me. He looked like a veteran. Battle was recognizing things, communicating, and that's the key. You can't over communicate at the safety position. And Jordan Battle was doing a good job of everything he saw. He was putting it out there and not fearful of making mistakes. Because if you're going to make a mistake, make it in training camp, make it in minicamp, or it can be corrected. Don't make the same mistake more than once, but learn from that mistake. But he is up to speed with what he's supposed to do, how he's supposed to do it. He understands how it fits into the overall scheme defensively. That's when you know you have a smart football player. It's not just tunnel vision on what am I going to do? What am I doing? But when you have a football player with a good football IQ, he sees the whole big picture. He understands what he has to do because he knows if he doesn't do what he's supposed to do, it's going to affect other people in the big picture defensively, whether it be coverage with other members in the secondary or linebackers involved with safeties, handing off coverages and that sort of thing. So he is very, very impressive. I mean, when I watched him out on the football field, he carried himself physically and mentally like a veteran, like a guy that had been around. And when the Bengals drafted him out of Alabama, that's the first thing that Nick Saban said, that he was effusive in his praise of the intelligence of Jordan Battle, the work ethic of Jordan Battle. I mean, he talked about Jordan Battle like it was his son. Just a tremendous love and respect for what Jordan Battle did for Alabama in his career playing football down there. And when you get that kind of high praise from somebody like Nick Saban, that's a heck of an accomplishment. So, yeah, don't rule out Jordan Battle whatsoever.
Another good friend of In the Trenches, Dolores. Killer Bee's gone. That hurt, but I am going to miss P. Ryan.
I am too. Samaje P. Ryan is a big back, runs with authority. He'll run behind his pads, show that power. Excellent in blitz pickup. Joe Burrow will miss his services in that regard. Samaje P. Ryan would identify who he was supposed to pick up in an all-out blitz situation, pick up the right guy. Very intelligent, very, very rare did he make an assignment error. So you could count on him. He was accountable. He was physical. Linebackers didn't run him over. He blocked defensive ends. They'd trust him to pick up defensive ends. If they'd block down with the offensive line, protect from inside out, and if they were consumed by blitzing linebackers, they'd say, Samaje P. Ryan, pick up that defensive end. We know you can do it. And he would do it. So not only a good runner of the football and could catch the football. We saw him make plays catching the football, and Joe Burrow would check it down to him out of the backfield, and he would not only catch it, but accumulate run after catch, a lot of yards in that area. Because, at that stage, whether you're a receiver or a running back, you're basically a runner with the ball in your hands after the catch. And again, excellent in blitz pickup. So the Denver Broncos got themselves a darn good football player, and they're going to have to identify guys to pick up the slack in that regard and be able to do some of the things that Samaje Perine did so well. He played extremely well for the Cincinnati Bengals. I agree with you.
We're going to do a 2-for-1 here because Cliff says, Dave, will the O-line be the most competitive for making the roster? And then Steven Turner said, should be the best O-line Burrow's had since being drafted.
No question about it. We're going to be doing a podcast here shortly. You guys will be seeing it in the next week or two with Frank Pollock. We have him scheduled to be a guest of ours here in the trenches. And I've already talked to Coach quite a few times about the depth in the offensive line and quality depth. A lot of guys that are competing for jobs in training camp. I think there's going to be probably 15 offensive linemen that'll be in training camp. A lot of them played NFL snaps and have accumulated quite a few NFL snaps. The guy that I'm going to be very interested to watch, though, is Jackson Kirkland, 6'7", 330-pound rookie out of Washington. This kid looks the part. I mean, when you say 6'7", 330, and it's proportioned well, he's not the least bit sloppy. This guy is he's physically put together. And you look at it and you say, boy, he passes the eyeball test. There's no way that this guy can't go out and physically compete for a roster spot with the Cincinnati Bengals. He didn't get drafted because he had the injury bug, and he got nicked up and didn't play as many football games as he had hoped and others hoped that he would play. But if healthy, and if he can remain healthy, I'm very interested to see how he can compete. I think he can compete inside at the guard position as well as at tackle. And that's what you look for if you're not a starting offensive lineman and you're one of the 7 or 8 guys they're going to dress on Sunday. You have to be able to play more than one position, whether it be if you're the third tackle and you can play both right and left, that's fine. But you can't be, an offensive tackle that's not starting and only play right tackle. And they can't think about putting you in at the left tackle position. There's injury. You have to be able to hold your own in both. And then with the interior lineman, the same thing. You have to be able to play either both guards or center or guard, or if you can work it out and figure out a way to get it done. I've got the nickname The Tool. I played all 5 positions in the same game in a couple of different games. That was a challenge. Jim McNally put out the challenge to me, but it was a heck of a learning experience. There's no question about it. And I'm glad I did it. I don't think many people have done that. In fact, he told me he thinks I might be the only one that did it 2 times in 2 different games in the same year. But if you can do more than one thing, well enough to be able to do it at the level in the National Football League, you increase your value as an offensive lineman. They got a lot of guys competing for a few spots. There'll be 15 guys probably minimum offensive linemen at training camp competing to be, 7 or 8 guys that'll be dressing for games. Now there'll be more than that on the roster. There'll be deactivated offensive linemen, potentially linemen. If in your first year you can be practice squad lineman, like worst case scenario, maybe Kirkland is in that situation. But it's going to be interesting to watch those competitions, and Frank Pollock's excited about it. This is the deepest and most talented offensive line that the Bengals have had since Joe Burrow has been drafted to play quarterback. There are no 2 ways about it. I mean, Orlando Brown at that left tackle position is a major acquisition. And I don't know about you, but I watched him a couple of days. He was on ESPN on NFL Live as like almost like a guest host. He was there the entire show, and he did a good job. I mean, he acquitted himself really well. He's intelligent, communicates well, and when you're in the locker room with him, it's like he's been around the football team for a while already, and it's only been a few weeks. He's just one of those kind of guys. I think special player, and more importantly, very special person as well.
Garrett Hughes, happy belated birthday, Dave.
Thank you, G-Man. Appreciate that. Had a good time. Had a lot of family activity with kids and grandkids. It was a good time had by all, I believe. So I just wish I could stop right now, though. And I wish I could have stopped before I hit the number I hit 2 years ago. Never mind this year. They're coming too fast.
Any idea tight ends that could be a cap casualty or fringe roster that could be a good fit for the Bengals?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have not studied, the tight end position around the league that could be cap casualties, or somebody that's what another factor. Duke Tobin and his staff of scouts, and they've got scouts that predominantly cover the college football arena, and then he has other scouts that cover the National Football League, and their responsibilities overlap at draft time and overlap a little bit when they sign college free agents and veteran free agents in the National Football League. But these scouts and Duke Tobin, they're studying the heck out of every NFL roster. And they're looking where there are going to be very, very competitive battles at specific position groups around the National Football League. And they're going to try to project who might be there on the final cutdown that might be able to pick up to improve your roster. Although, honestly, the Cincinnati Bengals roster, it's definitely top 5 in the National Football League, top to bottom, from 1 to 53 in terms of roster depth. I think it's top 3. And a lot of people that I talk to agree that it's top 3. So the Bengals had found themselves in a position of looking at, oh man, these better teams in the National Football League. What players are going to be available? What guys is this football team that's been to the Super Bowl recently or has been to a conference championship game recently? Who are they going to be letting go? Now other teams in the league are looking at the Bengals roster. Who are the Bengals going to be letting go? So, I think that they feel pretty good about their roster, and I think the worm has turned a little bit. I think other teams around the National Football League are going to be looking to pick up people that the Cincinnati Bengals may be discarding.
Leads right into Dave Lennox. Hooday, Lap.
Hooday, Dave.
If LC can start the season at right tackle, where would you rank our O-line in the league?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in the top handful, honestly. I really do. I'm not sure LC will be able to start the season at right tackle. I think if LC, if he can come back in the, maybe miss the early stages of the season, maybe miss the first couple, 3, 4 games, that's a possibility. It's not out of the question that he starts the season. He's not able to start the season at the right tackle position, but I think that's almost a wish list kind of thing, where he would be able to not only if he were to start the season at right tackle, he would have to be able to come back and be physically able to compete in training camp, at least in the drills. And when they're going full speed in their 9-on-7 run package schemes that they do, 1-on-1 pass rush drills, maybe half-line drills where they're going through twists and stunts and picking up blitzes. He's going to have to show that he's physically capable in all of those areas before you think about running him out there at the right tackle position in a football game. So if he can't do that kind of thing at training camp, he's not going to start the season at the right tackle position, particularly with Jonah Williams and others that are going to be competing for that position at the right tackle spot. They have not put out it too deep yet. I think they will do it right before training camp starts. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a battle royale over there. Cody Ford will be over there at the right tackle position as well. It's going to be best man win. Deontay Smith is going to throw his hat in the ring. Collins, if healthy, he'll be out there at the right tackle position. Jonah Williams be out there. Max Sharping wants to compete probably in that area as well. Devin Cochran. I mean, like I said, they've got a lot of offensive linemen at training camp, and the list of candidates to fight at that right tackle position is going to be pretty extensive and pretty competitive.
TJ Deller says, yeah, I wouldn't mind going to the First Star Logistics draft party next year. That looked fun. We did have a fun time. For me, a little stressful because we were trying to stream on 2 different channels for over 4 hours. but it was a great time.
It was, and I think it was well attended. I think the people that were there would confirm the fact that it's worth doing. So I think it's going to be a hot item next year, and we got current players to come and participate, be part of the process as well. And it's a very interesting night, draft night. Everybody's guess is as good as anybody else's. Sometimes you can have a better educated guess than at other points of the draft, but it's a very interesting process. I mean, it gets big numbers. I'll tell you that. The number of people that watch on a national basis on various coverage platforms, whether it be ESPN, the NFL Network, radio, whatever the case may be, the numbers are significant. We're talking, multiple millions, 20, 25 million viewership on the cable channels for sure.
Kyle Parker says, do you think they will sign Burrow, Higgins, and Wilson before the season starts?
I'm not sure they'll get all three signed before the season starts. I think that would be, I guess you're talking regular season, or are you talking preseason? Are you talking training camp? They're definitely not all going to be signed, I don't think, before training camp. I think once training camp starts, there'll be some significant talks heat up. And I think, honestly, before Higgins and Wilson can sign, Burrow has to be signed. They have to get the pecking order is, I would think, Joe Burrow. You want to get him under contract. He's the biggest part of the budget. What's going to be left over? You don't want to necessarily sign the others, and then, we don't quite have what we thought we had necessarily left in the budget for Joe Burrow. I think that first and foremost, it would be good to get him locked up. I think he understands that. Do I think it could happen before the regular season with Joe Burrow? I think it could. I think these things, usually when training camp starts, right now, it's a dead time. It's a dead time for everybody. I think once training camp starts, there's a sense of urgency that picks back up again. And once you start playing preseason games, it gets even more so. So I do know one thing. You won't see Joe Burrow taking any preseason snaps. If that contract's not done, that extension's not done, you're not going to see him take any anyway. But it'll be interesting. I don't think any of those veteran players, Zac is pretty much committed to the fact that he's going to protect his players. He's going to do what he did when they brought the Rams in, and they had 2 days of workouts, and the second day ended up in a big fight. Aaron Donald was swinging his helmet at players, and so Zac is going to do the same type of thing with the Green Bay Packers. He has a great relationship with both head coaches, with the Rams and the Green Bay Packers, but it's only going to be 1 day. So tempers should be able to be controlled for one good work day, and that's going to be probably the most significant work day at training camp for veteran players with the Cincinnati Bengals, because you're not going against your teammates who you work at practice every day. Their strengths and weaknesses. You're working against another opponent on a full speed basis, probably, other than tackling. They won't tackle, but they'll go all out and then just wrap and not tackle. It's going to be really good work for offensive linemen, tight ends, defensive linemen, linebackers, safeties. There's going to be some physicality to those practices. So that's going to be where a lot of work is going to be done that particular week of opening of training camp when they play the Green Bay Packers. It'll be probably the Thursday before the Saturday game. They'll work real hard on Thursday and basically back way off on Friday and go play that game on Saturday against the Green Bay Packers.
TJ Wright says, Dave, any impression on Charlie Jones and Chase Brown early on? I think they could be a big boost to an already dynamic offense.
Bingo, TJ. Couldn't agree more. Charlie Jones, he impressed me big time. Charlie Jones runs in the 4.4s. He's one of those types of receivers that at the top of his route, he does not give you any tell on what he's going to be doing. I mean, he could be running an in, he could be running an out, he could be running a slant. He looks the exact same at the top of his route before he finishes the route. So He's an outstanding route runner. He's got very, very good hands, caught over 100 balls his senior year for over 1,300 yards. He's a very precise route runner. He can run after the catch. He's a good punt returner. He's a very good football player. And Brown at the running back position, same type of thing. This kid's put together now. He's built to last in the National Football League at the running back position. He can run it. They didn't ask him to catch it much, but everything I've seen at camp, he's a good catch of the football. And blitz pickup, he wasn't asked to do much of that. That's going to be where the rubber meets the road. I got to see that on a live basis when they put shoulder pads and helmets on, and it's a live day, not not a day where it's just helmets and shorts and t-shirts. That's not going to be, you're not going to be able to tell anything there. But when they have shoulder pads on and they're going full speed other than tackling, that's when you're going to see if Brown is going to be able to handle things from a blitz pickup standpoint at practice and in preseason games as well, obviously.
Les says, hi, Lapham, Dave. Those expectations are sky high. Could this be finally our year for the chip?
Well, there's probably 8 to 10 teams in the AFC that are thinking exactly like we are, Les. There's a myriad of quarterbacks in the AFC that can make the Pro Bowl. I mean, literally a good 8 of them, maybe even more, maybe as many as 10. If they get hot, they can have a Pro Bowl year and they can take their team to the playoffs. And the Cincinnati Bengals are one of them. So, yeah, this could be their year for the chip. But the one thing that, you have to have is luck in terms of injury. And not just injury to key players. You cannot afford to lose a key player for a long period of time. The Bengals got away with it last year. You lose Jamar Chase, but it was like for 3 weeks. It wasn't for half a season or more. It wasn't that kind of thing. So you don't want to lose any of your key contributors for any length of time. And the injury bug can be a detriment to any football team. I mean, that's a variable you can't control. It's in the hands of the football gods. So hopefully the football gods will be kind to the Cincinnati Bengals. And we talk about how good their roster is and how deep their roster is. But anybody, there's not a team in the National Football League that has their 53rd player is equal to their number 1 player, or their last 10 players are equal to their top 10 players in their roster in terms of contributors to the football team. That's impossible. You don't have that kind of roster depth. What you hope to have is guys that can, not play, but play at a good level for you. And that's going to be the factor. If, in fact, the Bengals do lose a player for an extended period of time, whoever that next man up is, he is going to have to answer the bell. He is going to have to play at his highest level on a consistent basis and do the best he can in the interim. But you don't want to have to face that. But this could be the year, depending on the health of the football team. And luck's a big factor in that for sure.
Randy Byers wants to know, I've wondered if you've considered doing a podcast with Gio Bernard.
Gio is got a good relationship with Gio. That'd be a good idea, good call. He's extremely articulate. He's got something to say and says it well. And I don't think you can pick anybody. You can find guys that were as good a teammate as Giovanni Bernard in the Cincinnati Bengals history, but he's as good a teammate as anybody has had, any team has had in Cincinnati Bengal history. He is all about team. He will sacrifice himself. He'll sacrifice his stats, his numbers for the betterment and the good of his football team. Giovanni Bernard is the glue that is responsible for a lot of good football teams that he played on. He was the glue behind that. He really was. I mean, he's one of those guys that is maybe not highly publicized, but everybody on that football team within that organization knows that Giovanni Bernard, his value is off the charts.
Going to tie two together here. Dave Lennox. Dave, can you talk about Ben Brown? And then Cliff says, Kirkland, we must have got him at Costco.
Yeah, I mean, Ben Brown's another one. Ben Brown has had some injury issues as well, but he's 6'5", 312 pounds out of Mississippi. I think he could be a pretty darn good center. I really do. And the Bengals have kept him around. And they've kept him around for a reason. Now, can he play guard effectively as well? That's going to be the key. As I said, if you're not one of the first five, and Ted Karras is obviously going to be the starting center. So Trey Hill has been the guy that has been the primary backup at the center and guard position, over the last few years. 6'4", 335-pounder out of Georgia, and he redid his body a little bit. When I was watching him during minicamp, he's reworked himself some as well. But Ben Brown will be in the mix. Ben Brown is it's there for him. If during the course of competition he grades out to the level that he can grade out at, he is definitely in the hunt. They like him. They like his athletic ability, and he's plenty big enough.
What about Kirkland? Also, Cliff.
Yeah, I already talked about him. Kirkland's the one that wasn't drafted. I talked about before, Jackson Kirkland, 6'7", 300 almost 30-pounder out of Washington. The reason he wasn't drafted is because of injury. And yeah, he's another guy that is what he's got in his favor is he could be a practice squad candidate, but he would have to clear waivers. So if he played well enough in training camp, offensive linemen are hard to find, particularly 6'7", 330-pounders that have athletic ability. You may not clear waivers. You have to clear waivers to be able to go on the practice squad. So, yeah, Kirkland, like I said, he passes the eyeball test. When he comes walking out of the locker room, you look at him as like, that is an NFL offensive lineman. But over the years, there have been many, many cases of guys that look like Tarzan, play like Jane. And then you'll see guys that come walking out of the locker room that look like they're, beer drinking truck drivers. And they get on the football field and they can play some ball. So it's not just how you look, it's how you play. It's there's a lot to it. If it were that simple, all you do is go out and hire every bodybuilder you can find to line up and play in the National Football League. And a lot of those guys ain't going to be able to play football very well. That's the way it is.
Cliff's got a lot of questions today, as always. Dave, how does one compete for a roster spot without playing so hard players get injured?
Yeah, you can't worry about injuries, Cliff. I mean, but they try to monitor that at practice. Like I said, they'll go live in the offensive and defensive line, and then at the linebacker level. But they're not going to tackle running backs. They're not going to tackle wide receivers. So you can't. It's a contact sport. You have to get your body ready for that contact, but you don't want to overdo it. There's a fine line there. You're not going to goal line scrimmage every day. Although I will say that the year we went to the Super Bowl in 1981, Boris Gregg at training camp, man, we went live. Every one of our team drills were live, full tackling. We had goal line scrimmages. We did, 100 up downs, run in place in full equipment, hit the ground, jump back up, do 3 sets of 30, 35. I mean, he destroyed us. But we avoided injury, and we avoided key injury during the course of the season. So, I mean, he definitely his mentality was iron sharpening iron. Our offense was pretty good. Our defense was pretty good. We're working hard against each other, iron sharpening iron, and that was the Vince Lombardi attitude and mentality. There's more than one way to skin a cat, for sure. And sometimes if you're overly cautious about injury, they're going to pop up. It's like all you do is you got to go out there and do your work to the best of your ability, and injuries occur, and you just have to be ready for them and move on. And that's why you have to have as good a roster depth as you possibly can. But they are taking care of players in this era of the National Football League. They are not beating guys up during the course of the week. Believe me, it's amazing when I watch how well they're being taken care of. And boy, the union has done a good job in collective bargaining agreements the last few years with management council of the ownership in the National Football League and the Players Association deciding how much contact will be allowed, how many days of contact, how many days of training camp. It's very, very reasonable. The NFL has become a year-round thing. Of course, Joe Burrow could be making $52 million a year for the next 4 years. Wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. So if I'm making $52 million a year, I'm going to work out year-round as well. I don't have to worry about an off-season job. When you're making $52 million a year, you're focused on what's making you that $52 million a year right now. There's no question.
Ronnie Smith says, "Hey, Dave, how is Jackson Carman looking?"
Yeah, he's looking good physically. He's got his body in very good shape. He's serious about it. And I think, that's a process, and it can be a very different process. Nobody's the same there. Some guys figure it out right away. Some guys never figure it out. Some guys, it takes a little bit longer to figure out than the ones that figure it out right away. And everybody's different. I think Jackson Carman is ready to compete. I think he'll be another one at that right tackle position that's going to be in the mix, in the fray. I will tell you that he lined up at left tackle down the stretch of the season for the Bengals and played well. He was more than adequate at that left tackle position last year down the stretch. And I think Frank Pollock realizes that, appreciates that. They really came together as an offense a little bit past midpoint, about halfway through the season. They kind of really came together, and Frank changed the scheme. Instead of the zone scheme, he was doing gap scheme, blocking down, pinning people, pin and pull, pin guys, pull, and the Bengals running attack exploded, took off. So credit Frank Pollock for making adjustments. Credit the offensive line for adjusting to the adjustments from a technique standpoint. And Jackson Carman, I think, benefited from all of it.
Dolores is back. She says, "What's going on with the punter competition?" Which little plug. Yeah. We did have the newest punter for the Bengals.
Yeah.
On In the Trenches here just the other week.
We did. We had Brad Robbins, and he's in a competition. There's no question about it, with Drew Chrisman, and they're both out of the Big Ten, Ohio State, Michigan. So Drew Chrisman is the incumbent, and Drew Chrisman, he's become a social media star. He's making Uber deliveries, and it's being put out on social media. So he's working that angle of it a little bit. But Robbins is a very talented guy. When I watch him, the one I guess criticism that was fair on Drew Chrisman in the playoffs and even in key games during the course of down the stretch of the season, lack of hang time came back to bite the Bengals a little bit, and Drew Chrisman had his struggles in that area, and that's where Brad Robbins has got really, really good hang time and control from a directional punting standpoint. So, punting in the NFL, it's not just blasting the thing 70 yards and you don't give a darn where it goes. It's controlling the football with hang time so your team can cover it, because there's no benefit to out-kicking your coverage, and then all of a sudden here come these outstanding returners at the NFL level with full head of steam coming up and ripping up your punt coverage team. They got a 15-yard window where they're getting up to full speed and determining how to make that first cut before you're even anywhere near putting a fingernail on them. So hang time's big. Hang time's big to contain and corral these outstanding punt returners.
Another question from Jesse. How do you think running back distribution will go? Who will be the third down and who will be in for pass pro?
That's to be determined, Jesse. I mean, all of those things are right there on the board, on the table for these guys, and they understand it. They understand that it's a big deal. And Samaje Perine was the third down guy. They understand that job is available. I think the Bengals drafted Brown because they feel like he can do a lot of those things. Chris Evans can do those things. They've got players at the position that some have had some snaps in the Bengals system, and others certainly haven't had as many. But Chris Evans is now in his third year, So, Joe Mixon obviously is the bell cow. He can do all of it. Chase Brown, 5'10". To me, it looks like he's bigger than his 211 pounds. I mean, he's chiseled. This kid is carved. There's no question about it. There's going to be a good battle at that position too. And everybody understands that the third down role that Samaje Perine filled so well is up for grabs. And maybe it's more than one person that's contributing to that third down possibility. You don't want to be in a situation, though, this guy goes into blitz pickup. This guy goes in to catch the football. And then the defense, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out, defensively, if you've got a guy in there that you never throw the football to and all he does is blitz pickup, it's easy for coordinators to scheme accordingly. Or if a guy, every time he's in the game, he's going to be checking out of the backfield right away and not even be involved in blitz pickup because he can't block, easy to scheme against that as well. So you're going to have to find, guys that can get the job done. If it's more than one and you can split those duties, so be it. But that's very, very important. Samaje Perine filled a very, very big role for the Bengals. Joe Burrow will tell you that Samaje Perine was an outstanding blitz pickup guy. And that's the thing. Anything blue collar like that, people don't notice it until it doesn't happen. When Samaje Perine sticks a linebacker right under the chin and stands him up, Joe Burrow throws a 30-yard dart. Nobody, oh boy, look at what Samaje. Everybody's, what a throw by Joe, what a catch by. You're not looking at the offensive line, what they're doing in the blitz pickup of the running back. But if somebody screws up, somebody misses, somebody goes the wrong way, either has a physical or a mental breakdown in that protection scheme, and Joe Burrow gets hit, and everybody notices. It's just the nature of the beast.
Talking about the quarterback, Ronnie Smith says, "Hey Dave, have you seen the backup QB?"
Yeah, I've seen. Both of them are are NFL caliber. It's not when you go to the mini camps and the OTAs and that sort of thing. Nobody looks like they don't belong. Jake Browning is in his fourth year. Let's see, make sure I'm right here. No, he's in his first year out of Washington, 6'2", 210. And they like him. He's there for a reason. They picked up Trevor Siemian, who has been around the league for a while, 9 years out of Northwestern, 6'3", 220-pounder. Talking to him, you can tell he's a 9-year pro in the National Football League. He knows what he's looking at. He knows what he's talking about. I think they feel like they're in pretty good shape at the quarterback position. And I think more importantly, they hope obviously that Joe Burrow takes every snap that the starter needs to take. Hopefully they're in some games where they're blowing people out and they can sub in a backup quarterback to finish a game. But the key is making the quarterback room something that Joe Burrow likes. There's a lot of work during the week. Backup quarterbacks fill a role, breaking tape down. Maybe bouncing ideas. Joe Burrow feels comfortable enough to bounce ideas off those guys during the course of the week. And equally important, during the course of the game. As Joe Burrow will come off the field, the first person that he talks to, put the headset on to talk to Brian Callahan and Dan Pitcher and those folks like that. Dan will go sit with them right on the bench, but so is the backup quarterback. And the backup quarterback is giving him feedback. This is what I saw. This is what they did on our last second down. This is what they did on third and medium. This is what they did on third and long. And I saw, safety was kind of cheating over here on this particular coverage. Anything like that's if you have a good quarterback room and there's a good working relationship there and there's an immense amount of trust there, that can do nothing but help Joe Burrow. There's no question about it.
Well, it's that time, Dave. We have to get off to get ready for another one. I want to do this one last question. Jesse comes back. He goes, "What would you think if we won the Super Bowl, presenting the Lombardi on a steamboat down the river to the stadium with the whole team partying on the boat?" Because that's his dream.
I tell you, with a big old wheel, big old wheel on the back, a big old paddle boat, steamboat. That would be appropriate here in the Queen City. down the river we go. That would not, Jesse, I'm in. Mark me as okay with that. That's a pretty good dream. We just got to stay away from nightmares, Just make sure you keep dreaming that good dream. No nightmares, Jesse.
And as always, we have to thank everybody at First Star Logistics for everything they provide for us on a weekly basis.
Yes.
It's not just one day, it's every day. Anything we ask, they have been so gracious to provide for us.
Top shelf, first class operation. They make it where it's not like you're coming to work. This is like when your vocation and your avocation are the same thing, when your hobby and your work are the same thing, it's a good deal. This is like part of your hobby, man. I don't look at this as work. Talking with you folks about football, that dog will hunt all day, every day. Thanks to First Star for giving us the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, again, thanks for everybody joining us. Be tuned for the next, maybe in the next 3 weeks, a couple more live streams over the next 3 weeks. We'll make sure we put them out the day before, and be watching for 2 pieces of content with Dan Horde. Both were good. One on the Bengals, one on the UC Bearcats, and Frank Pollock's coming up as well. And I'm sure we'll have some other guests over the next couple of weeks people will want to see.
With that said, hope summertime. Hope all of you are having great vacations with your families as well. Enjoy friends and family. Be safe. Have fun. Summertime. Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.